Alright, let's dive deeply into Richard E. Neustadt's power to persuade concept in presidential power. This is one of the most important ideas in modern political science about how the presidency actually works. 1. Neustadt's context and main argument. Richard Neustadt was a political scientist who, in 1960, published Presidential Power and the Modern Presidents. In it, he argued that the real power of a president is not found in formal constitutional authority alone, but in the ability to persuade and bargain. Why? Because in the American political system, the president cannot simply command and expect automatic obedience, even within the executive branch. Unlike a military general in a strict chain of command, the president is at the center of a network of separate power centers: Congress, the courts, state governments, the bureaucracy, the media, and public opinion. Neustadt's core point is this: the president's effectiveness depends on convincing others that it is in their interest to go along with his plans. 2. Why command is limited. In theory, the Constitution gives the president impressive-sounding powers: Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, power to appoint officials' authority to veto legislation, power to make treaties with Senate approval, executive power over the bureaucracy. But in practice, these powers are shared. Congress controls funding and lawmaking. The courts can declare actions unconstitutional. Bureaucrats may have their own agendas. Governors control state-level implementation. Even in the military, the president's command is subject to professional military advice, congressional oversight, and public scrutiny. Neustadt argued that formal powers are just the starting point. To turn them into real influence, the president has to persuade others to cooperate. 3. The three audiences the president must persuade. Neustadt emphasized that the president has to bargain with three main groups, each requiring a different persuasion strategy. A. Washington, insiders, political elites. This includes members of Congress, party leaders, senior bureaucrats, and interest group leaders. They have their own political capital, constituencies, and priorities. The president must trade favors, offer political support, and appeal to mutual interests. Example: President Lyndon B. Johnson used his deep congressional experience and personal relationships to push through civil rights legislation. B. The public opinion matters because strong public support gives the president leverage over Congress. Low approval ratings weaken his bargaining position. Presidents try to persuade the public through speeches, media appearances, and national addresses, what later political scientists call going public. Example: Franklin D. Roosevelt's fireside chats directly appealed to Americans to support his New Deal. C. Foreign leaders' presidents must also persuade international leaders to cooperate with U.S. policies. Example: John F. Kennedy had to persuade Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev during the Cuban Missile Crisis to de-escalate without either side losing face. 4. Bargaining, not dictating. Neustadt says presidents are most effective when they bargain. Trade-offs: if you support my bill, I'll support funding for your state project. Promises: offering political cover, appointments, or campaign support. Threats: signaling political costs for opposition, though Neustadt warns that threats can backfire. The president's reputation in Washington, as someone who can deliver on promises, and his public prestige, popularity among voters, determine how much leverage he has. 5. Reputation and prestige. 2 central ideas in Neustadt's framework. A. Professional reputation: how other Washington actors perceive the president's skill, determination, and reliability. A president with a strong reputation is harder to oppose because people believe he can win. Example: Johnson had a strong legislative reputation. Jimmy Carter, despite personal integrity, was seen as politically ineffective. B. Public prestige: the president standing with the general public. High prestige puts pressure on Congress to cooperate. Low prestige emboldens opposition. Example: Ronald Reagan's high public approval in the early 1980s helped him push major tax cuts through Congress. 6. Modern applications. Even in the modern media age, Neustadt's insight still applies. Barack Obama had to persuade moderate Democrats and some Republicans to pass the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump commanded attention through social media, but still had to bargain with Congress for legislative wins. Joe Biden in 2021 had to persuade a narrowly divided Congress to pass his infrastructure plan using both public appeals and behind-the-scenes negotiations. 7. Key takeaway. Neustadt's power to persuade reframes presidential power as relational rather than purely legal. It's not about ordering people around. It's about building coalitions, maintaining credibility, using public opinion strategically, negotiating trade-offs that make others want to cooperate. In short, presidents succeed when they make others believe that helping the president helps themselves.